Hey, hey.
Oh, hello from the past.
Don't be stealing my lines.
Yeah.
No glasses today, and we're not even live. It's a discount show. This is one of those dollar store shows.
Yeah. What was
this is one of those. This is a ratchet show, okay?
Yeah.
So just so we're like on point
we
here.
Missed some big news one time we did this too.
It was like 2 hours before Trump got shot, I think, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or he got cleared. Yeah.
We're going on and on about like 1970s soul singers and and college football and like Donald Trump gets shot. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that the numbers weren't so great on that show.
Yeah.
It's okay, we understand. Wanted to say real quick, hello to all the new Unregistered Academy members. We have a lot of new ones. Last Thursday's show, Unregistered live stream, was phenomenal. Had a really big audience. It was great, and a lot of people joined up and are now, I don't call them students, but members of the Academy, and it's been great to have them. And I've been talking to some of them, and we are going to, and this is the time to join, because we are going to unveil a big new Unregistered Academy for 2025. We're going to have semesters or terms and a whole schedule through the year, lots of new courses and instructors and all sorts of stuff. So that's been amazing. And then tomorrow, so we're doing the live stream again tomorrow, of course, same time, 7:00 Eastern, the Unregistered live stream tomorrow, drawing on 2 or 3 of the courses at the Academy. I will present some of the key evidence to use next time someone tells you that the Kennedys were peaceniks. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow, we're going to demolish the Kennedy mystique or mythology, which has been renewed in full force in recent months and years because of the reemergence of RFK Jr. and his imminent hearing in the Senate to become Secretary of Health and Human Services, which would be very interesting because of his uncle and his father's views on physical fitness, health, and the role of the nation state in promoting those things. So tomorrow, show up. You will find out who the Kennedys really were, both John and Bobby Sr., who is the main character, essentially, the focus of my first book on Jimmy Hoffa and the labor movement. Robert Kennedy Sr. was sort of the main antagonist in that history. So I do claim some expertise on this in particular. And plus, I've also written and extensively on John Kennedy as well, and especially his foreign policy, which is grossly and radically misunderstood even by people I respect and admire, who have recently been saying things like, if we just had a John F. Kennedy as president, we'd have world peace, because he wanted peace and he wanted to get out of Vietnam and he wanted peace with the Soviets. Well, tomorrow you will see why that should not be believed one little bit. But yeah, it's been great. I love getting back into teaching and getting back into history and philosophy. So yeah.
On the RFK Jr. tip, I think this is a conversation that libertarians and the right wing needs to have, because Kennedy, famously lifelong Democrat, right? Like Mr. Democrat, comes from Democrat Party royalty, has spent his whole life as an environmentalist lawyer, has spent his whole life trying to regulate corporations. And you have the libertarian right now proudly advocating policies that a few short years ago would have decried as nanny state interventionism, like banning beef tallow in your fries. Mandating that certain ingredients are used, banning certain dyes, banning advertisers from reaching out to children when it comes to junk food and stuff like that. So this is like a conversation that's been completely ignored and just steamrolled over. I do think it's great that like we're talking about this finally, but ideologically purposes, I think the Soho Forum needs to jump on this in some way and have a debate about, do we want to start advocating these nanny state health policies, and is this what libertarians should be cheerleading?
The thing to understand about the Kennedy family and Bobby Jr. is prime example of this is they're very much a product of the mid 20th century in America, that culture in the United States, and especially among the elites in the United States. If you came of age in the 40s, 50s, and 60s and 70s, around there, and you were in an American elite family like that, man, it was balls to the wall. The megalomania was off the charts, right? You are now sitting on top of the most powerful empire in human history. So, I mean, that leads to grand visions, you know, and especially when you think that you were a naturally superior person by virtue of being born into this family, by virtue of having gone to elite prep schools and having gone to Harvard and all the rest of it. And you can see it if you read the writings and listen to the speeches and read the diaries of the Kennedys and the Roosevelts and all the big American political families, the American royalty, as you said. You can see that they felt not just entitled, but duty bound to help others around the world improve their lives. Now, here's the thing. That's noblesse oblige, which is annoying if you're not a rich person and you see it happening. It's condescending, it's patronizing, it's all those things. It's arrogant. It's it's cultural imperialism. It's all quite distasteful. I don't like any of it. The problem is that with the Kennedys and the Roosevelts and some other families, but especially those two families, they were able to harness those megalomaniacal, grandiose ambitions, evangelical savior ambitions, to the power of the most powerful nation state in human history. And they weren't shy to do it. So, you know, with Roosevelt, it was, let's use the federal government to create jobs and build dams and airports and bridges and roads and everything. The ambitions of statist projects were off the charts in the mid 20th century among especially American liberal elite families. And then the Kennedys came to town in the 50s and 60s. Similarly, I mean, look at John Kennedy's speeches about foreign policy. We were going to run the world. And in his very famous inaugural address, what did he promise? To go to every hut, hamlet, and village in the third world and raise those people out of poverty. That's what that speech says, and we think that's the greatest speech ever in American history, presidential history. That's psychotic stuff. I mean, who thinks that? Who thinks that I not only can but should go lift up people I've never met in countries I've never been to? It's a very American evangelical, imperialist, progressive way of thinking, and that's the Kennedys were the prime exemplars of that. And Bobby Jr., who will soon be the czar of all things health related in our country, is absolutely a product of that. He talks of, and he has said this many times, I just stare at him with my jaw dropping as he says it. He says the Democratic Party that he knew growing up was the party of, these are his words, peace and freedom of speech. So come by tomorrow to the Unregistered live stream tomorrow. You'll find out a lot more about who the Kennedys really were, in particular, John F. and Robert F. Kennedy. All right. We have some horrific things to talk about, as usual, but I would say, you know what? This last week, believe it or not, this is incredible to say this, but God, and including Ukraine, right? The bloodshed in the last 7 days in the world might have been the worst week in the last year, even since Gaza started, because of Syria and the images coming out of Syria. If you miss the days of seeing Arab people slaughter each other in the streets, largely because of U.S. interference in their countries, have a look at Twitter. It's a good time. You'll see beheadings. You'll see men in bandages and hospital beds being executed. You'll see men begging for their lives, crouching on the streets of Damascus and Aleppo, begging for their lives, but then getting shot in the head anyway. Oh, it just goes on and on. I mean, I can't even. The woman holding her dead son, and then a bunch of these jihadists coming by and kicking his body while she's holding, and then dragging his body out of her arms away, and then I think filling him with bullets again. I mean, it's happening right this very fucking moment. There are just pogroms, rampages all over Syria. And here's the thing, everybody. Those guys doing the worst things that you see in those images, they were trained, paid, and armed by the United States of America. Sometimes working through Turkey, sometimes working through Israel, although Israel has also supported them. That's Al-Qaeda, now rebranded as HTS, formerly Al-Nusra Front. But everyone agrees, everyone, no one denies this, the State Department doesn't deny this, that it's a branch of Al-Qaeda and always has been. And they were the leading combatant among the rebel groups in the Syrian Civil War, beginning all the way back in 2011. And now they've taken control of all of Syria, which I've never been, but, you know, by all accounts is like one of the most beautiful places. And of course, historically significant, with still incredible artifacts remaining from antiquity. Some of the oldest artifacts from Christianity there still standing, at least for now. But who knows? I mean, if there's an ISIS element within Al-Qaeda and within this Al-Qaeda faction, and there probably is, they're going to want to take down those artifacts because they want to start from year zero in the new caliphate. Who knows? But there's just mass murder going on of a pogromic style in Syria as we're speaking, and it could be in the thousands, hundreds of, I don't know. I mean, people being murdered like that as we speak. And the leaders of the worst elements of those rebels, the ones who are doing the worst atrocities, as I said, they've been supported by the Central Intelligence Agency primarily since Obama started the Syrian dirty war in that year, didn't he? He was either 11 or 12 right away. It was immediate. And then 3 years later, 2015, Russia intervened on behalf of the Syrian government, on behalf of Assad, to stop these ISIS and Al-Qaeda fighters, these jihadists, from taking control of Syria. But now they have. Now they have. And we know that, and again, this is not controversial. No one really denies this. I mean, again, State Department doesn't really deny this. Israel doesn't really deny this. It was the three of them. It was Israel, the United States, and Turkey.
Well, they're proud of it.
And well, Israel's celebrating, just straight up, just dancing in the street, literally, about this because they think it's great for them. Good luck with that. The United States is saying, well, it's great. I love what they say about it. Meaning, when I say the United States, the State Department, I mean them and people like Ben Shapiro and, you know, the sort of their spoke in the media.
Ben Shapiro doesn't really care about the United States. He's a representative of Israel, but go on.
I wonder. I'd like to ask him sometime. Yeah. I don't think that's true. He's really a man.
Man, he's said that he only loves the United. I mean, this might be a total quote. He said that, like, man, he said a lot of things that clearly state that he has more loyalty to Israel than the United States. That he loves the United States because it protects Israel. That Israel is the homeland for him in his eyes, and he loves the United States because it provides the homeland of Israel for him. Mm-hmm. Like, the United States is a tool. There? Yeah.
Then why doesn't his little Zionist ass live there? None of it makes sense. But anyway, so Israel, these guys are fun. So what they do is the reason we know there's two pieces of evidence that we know that Israel has funded and supported the Al-Qaeda people in Syria since the beginning. One is that we have reports from Israeli media that Al-Qaeda fighters in Syria during the Civil War were treated in Israeli hospitals in the Golan Heights and then sent back once they were recuperated, sent back to the fight in Syria by Israel. The other is that we have many, many quotes in the mainstream press from those Al-Qaeda fighters saying that they love Israel and appreciate all their help in this war. But we also know that the CIA, and this comes from many, many reports, the New York Times especially reported this years ago. Get this, everybody. Think about the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, and its long history of financing, supporting, arming, training, directing militia groups all over the world, insurgent armies all over the world. Think about its long history. So there have been 100 regime change wars financed by the CIA since 1948. Okay. A lot of money has gone into that. The Syrian Civil War, according to many, many scholars and experts and sources on this, including the New York Times, more money has been spent by the United States through the CIA on that war by arming Al-Qaeda and ISIS than in any other covert operation in the CIA's history. Hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe billions at this point. Who knows? And look what we got for it. So Assad is gone, and that's the only thing they have to say. That's all you need to know. Assad is gone. That's a reason for celebration. Apparently, that is so important because he was so evil that it's worth, having people slaughtered in the streets and this ancient, incredible civilization devolve into a caliphate of, neo-Islamist maniacs. Sure. Thank God, because Assad is gone. Oh, whew, we feel so much better for the Syrian people. This is what people living in New York City and San Francisco are saying. It's quite something. Now, Assad, here's what you need to know about Assad. Bashar al-Assad, the butcher of Damascus. You should hear Democrats. Yeah, right. You should hear Democrats talk about him. It's something. I mean, they're just like, and I hope when he goes to Russia, I literally heard this. This was on Pod Save America, I swear to God. When he's in Russia, I heard they have really cold winters in Moscow, and I hope he has a really bad time there and dies soon. I mean, they really hate him so much because of what he did to the Syrian people. Well, did Bashar al-Assad slaughter civilians? Oh, yeah. But go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, it's interesting how Russia and Iran were not there to protect Assad, in that, they did not provide a substantial force to stop the rebels from taking over Aleppo and then Damascus.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's that whole collapse of that coalition.
Yeah.
And the fact that Assad has still not issued a statement, a public statement. It's clearly, and there's a long story about that. His older brother was supposed to be the king, and he died. He was a playboy. He was, I think, driving his sports car too fast on the freeway and died when he was about to take over. And so his dad, who was the dictator before him for years and sort of established this dictatorship, this familial dictatorship, was like, all right, Bashar, who at that point was a ophthalmologist living in London and obviously a total nerd, pencil neck geek kind of guy. He wasn't, the type of dude to run secret prisons and shit. So, yeah, I mean, he was a reluctant dictator from the beginning. But let me just say this about Bashar al-Assad, and for that matter, his father, too. What he did during the Civil War, Syrian Civil War, certainly no worse than what Abraham Lincoln did. Show me a state leader anywhere in the world at any time in history who responded to a civil war in their country in less than monstrous ways. I'm not defending it. I hate the state. I hate people who run the state. But that's what happens every single time. And of course they're going to respond like that because that is what matters to them more than anything. The heads of state and the state itself, if it has sort of a collective consciousness, which it sort of does, that is when they go to total war. When the state itself is threatened, obviously, it is an existential threat. And so, yes, Abraham Lincoln, do we not know what he did? Do we care? We don't like to talk about that because he, of course, was the good one. He was the good mass murdering dictator butcher because he did it for the blacks, apparently, although he didn't even do it for that. But whatever, we let him during a civil war act like a monster because, oh, that was the good side. But when Assad does it, oh no, he needs to. I mean, it's amazing hearing Democrats talk about Assad in this way when they adore Abraham Lincoln. It's just really funny. I mean, liberals, they adore Abraham Lincoln. Wow. Yeah, they want Assad to burn in hell because of what he did. And oh, I don't mind if he does. I don't care at all. Now, the other thing about Assad is people need to know, you will hear the number or numbers 300,000, usually 500,000, they'll say. He butchered 500,000 of his own people, is what they say. Well, it's a lot less than that. I mean, he definitely butchered some civilians, no doubt, in large numbers, more than enough for me to not care one bit about him. But the casualty figures, and we don't know, but it's somewhere between 300 and 500,000 dead in the Syrian Civil War. I mean, come on now. That's assuming that the rebels, the rebels killed no one. And I mean, so there's actually been studies done. A think tank based at Oxford University did an extensive study of this and found that more than 50% of the casualties in the Syrian Civil War were produced by the rebels, by the Al-Qaedas, by the ISISes, and there were many other factions, by the way, that were not Islamist. They were just the smaller factions, and they ended up not being as important and not being as powerful. But yes, there was brutality all around, and Assad, and then of course Assad killed, most of the people he killed were militants, who most of us don't mind having dead anyway. So of course it's all greatly exaggerated. What he actually did that was evil is exaggerated tremendously. It's just the typical demonology that goes along with empire. Every empire has to demonize the leaders of the countries that they want to conquer. And we, meaning the West plus Israel, want to conquer Syria. And that's what this is always about, has been about since 2011. The Arab Spring was not entirely, but in large part facilitated, and I didn't know this at the time, and I'm embarrassed. I wrote articles at the time sort of celebrating it uncritically, but now we know that the National Endowment for Democracy and all sorts of CIA-funded front groups, NGOs in all the Arab countries were fomenting and often leading the Arab Spring protests in 2011. And as I said last week, the one that didn't succeed was in Syria. And that's when the Syrian, what we call dirty war, began. And that's when Obama decided to begin funding these rebels to take out Assad. Why was this important to the United States at that time? Well, this is a good dog versus tail debate. The dog being in the United States and the tail being Israel, right? And does the tail wag the dog or vice versa? Has been the debate. And I used to always be firmly on the side of the dog wags the tail. The United States is the dominant partner in that. The Israel could never have and does not have the ability to dictate terms in that relationship. Well, recent events have certainly changed my mind to some extent about that, both like watching the power of the Israeli lobby inside the United States, especially in response to the protests and what has happened in Congress, etc. But we also know that in 1996, Benjamin Netanyahu authored a book in which he said, what needs to happen is the international community needs to take out all of the leaders in all of the countries that surround Israel. And he named them: Lebanon, Syria, Egypt, Iraq, Libya, and of course Hezbollah, Hamas, the rest of them. I mean, he listed the Sudan, and those are exactly the countries that the United States proceeded to target. And so the other thing we know is about the Iraq War and Syria is that if the plan was, before the U.S. went into Iraq, the neocons running U.S. foreign policy in the Bush administration at the time said this, and this is well documented. Their plan was to then go to Syria after they deposed, because they thought it was going to be quick. They thought they would take out Saddam quickly. Everyone would greet the American soldiers as liberators, and then we would march west to Syria, to Damascus, and overthrow Assad to help stabilize the power of Israel in the Middle East, who is our most important partner, is the only way I can understand it. It's just an incredible. And then if you want to understand Turkey's motivation, I mean, meaning Erdogan's motivations in this, Erdogan is a funny one. And I had a good sense of who he was when I took Turkish Airlines to Greece. This was about 7-8 years ago. And he had been ruler for a while at that point. And Turkish Airlines is a state-owned corporation. It's a state-owned airline, right? So Erdogan, I think, is essentially the CEO of Turkish Airlines, right? So we take our seats. I sit down and pull out the airline magazine, and I start looking at it. It's fascinated. And I think the back cover was simply the route map for Turkish Airlines. And Turkish Airlines has only one hub or home airport, which is Istanbul, but it flies to every major city in the world. At least it did. I don't know if it's still it's an incredible map. Someone should look it up. It just like the spokes going all toward Istanbul being the center of the world. I could see that Erdogan has imperial ambitions. I hope they're not global, although that route map of Turkish Airlines sure looked like it. But we do know that he most certainly has regional imperialist ambitions, and that's what is fueling this. He has wanted to take out Assad for a while. He wants to replace Iran, most importantly, and I said this last week, as the principal power in that region. He wants to replace Hezbollah and the Assad regime and Iran and Hamas and surround Israel with a partner. Now, we don't know exactly what kind of partner, because he has talked a lot of game about Palestinians and how awful Israel is toward the Palestinians and how much in solidarity he is with the Palestinians. But then he does these deals with Israel in which he sells them oil, which has been happening since the beginning. And then he does this. He takes out one of their principal enemies, maybe their most important enemy for them, but for his own ambitions at the same time. So here's your new axis of evil. The United States, Israel, and Turkey doing untold damage to those poor people who live in that part of the world. I mean, between Lebanon, Syria, and Palestine, I can't imagine the pain and suffering incurred against those people over the last year. Not entirely. There's agency. I get it. There's Islamists, and there are even some rebels who have done some bad things. But most of this would not be happening. That I can safely say, without the United States of America and Israel stoking it all along. It's really gross and sad. Yeah.
Israel just started occupying the Golan Heights at the border. So.
Oh, right. Forgot that. So, right. That part. My good friends in Israel. Yeah. So they, we'll see. Yeah. Right. We'll see this is what we're all waiting for right now. Is like, what are they going to do now that they're next to Damascus? So the IDF, immediately after Assad left and after Damascus fell, occupied the Golan Heights, but then moved east into part and took a part of Syria. And they called that their buffer zone. And they said, well, it's unstable now in Syria. We don't know who's going to take power. So we're going to make sure that there's a buffer zone between them and us, whoever takes power, so that they can't attack the Israeli mainland.
Might as well build some settlements too while we're at it, just in case.
And then 2 days later, I think it was just a day later, they were like, nah, fuck it. We're going to just march on Damascus. And so this IDF column just like rolled all the way to, I think they're just outside of Damascus. I heard like 10 miles or less outside of Damascus, like in the Damascus suburbs. there's the IDF is there, effectively controlling a big chunk of southern Syria, and the most important part, which is that around the capital. Are they going to stay and try to have some kind of brokered deal with al-Qaeda to I mean, what? You have the Jewish state.
Wouldn't be the first time Israel and al-Qaeda worked together.
It sure wouldn't. I mean, this is how ruthless they are, right? It's not as if they don't know who al-Qaeda is, and they, al-Qaeda doesn't know who they are. I mean, like, ay. What are you going to do with these people, man? The problem is they run governments, like our sociopaths are the ones we let run our governments and our militaries. I mean, that is all that happens. The good people we know, the warm-hearted people we know, the people who don't want to kill anybody ever, they're never going to run for government. They're never going to have state power. No, it's the sociopaths. Mm-hmm. It's the one who see people getting murder and go, that's unfortunate. They're the ones who become our governors and are the leaders of American foreign policy. And then the rest of us just sit back and watch it through our screens from a few thousand miles away and try to get distracted by something else.
It is demoralizing to root against Israel in any capacity or to try to oppose them in any significant manner.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's give them props. I mean, holy smokes, look what they've done. Congratulations. I mean, the mayhem has been exquisite, guys. Now we know Jews can fight. I mean, we've known for a while. Well, those Jews, again, I don't think they're Jews. I think they're Zionists. They're something else. They're not like any Jew I've ever known. No Jew I've ever known could throw a punch. So I don't. And there's been books written about this, about the chasm between Israeli culture and Jewish American culture. I mean, whenever I would meet Israelis here, I'd be like, who the fuck are you? And American Jews are very overawed by them because they think they're so physically powerful and beautiful and all these things and courageous. Boy, though, a lot of that's true because look what they just did. Let's go through it. I mean, so first of all, they've killed 45,000 people in Hamas and Gaza. Oh, by the way, geez, I forgot to mention this. Just this morning, I believe, Israeli media is reporting that there's going to be a ceasefire, most likely, that it's happening. Let me say this real quick because Nadav Ayal he's technically an independent journalist, but he comes out of the Israeli government and he has clearly very close ties with top people in the government there, and he's almost a spokesperson for them. Yeah, he was saying this morning that that there's a deal coming for real, and he wouldn't make this up. He's a Likudnik. I mean, the deal, he says, is that it's going to be not all, but some. I think it's all the remaining civilian hostages will be released from Gaza, which is wonderful. And then an unspecified number of Palestinian prisoners will be released as well. Don't know how many, don't know which ones, but some. Usually it's more, actually. The Palestinians usually get more of their prisoners out than the Israelis do. So that'd be good. And here's the big shit, is that Israel or the IDF will withdraw from parts of Gaza. Not specified which parts, although I suspect it's the north. I don't know, since there's nothing in the north anymore. The north is, I think, basically leveled, and so it doesn't matter in a sense whether they're there. I could be wrong about that. But anyway, so they're going to withdraw from parts of Gaza. And this is what it appears to be, Hamas will remain in power. I believe that's the deal. That's what Ayal was reporting this morning, that Hamas will not take exile somewhere as part of the deal, which that had been floated before. And we'll see. But it does look like Israel's willing to finally do this. Hamas has been willing to do this for a long time. And so this is further confirmation in my mind that Israel had a big part in what just went on in Syria, because the timing is perfect. So let me go through. And the other reason is, this is the last the last enemy has fallen, really, almost. I mean, except for Iran, but even Iran has been weakened. So yeah, so they killed Nasrallah. They killed Nasrallah as number 2 in Hezbollah. So the top 2 leaders of Hezbollah have been assassinated. Then the pager attack. That's not the military leadership, by the way. That was the civilian leadership of Hezbollah that got attacked in the pager attack. They don't like to talk about that. But, you know, still, it was a major part of this Hezbollah infrastructure. And many other leaders, military leaders of Hezbollah, too, have been killed in the last few months. So there's that. So Hezbollah has been just like hit extremely hard. Assad is now gone. The Syrian army is now gone. And most importantly, and this is, I guess, what people are missing, the reason, maybe the principal reason, probably the principal reason that Israel and the U.S. went after Syria and Assad so hard was that it's the main land bridge between Iran and Hezbollah and between Iran and Hamas. So most or all of the weapons and sort of travel of people between Iran and Hezbollah went right through Syria. So that's now cut off. Hezbollah's major supply line is now cut off. Then Iran, of course, has been bombed repeatedly over the last many months by Israel. Many of its military installations, we don't know exactly how many, but certainly some have been hit very hard and they've lost men. Soleimani was killed by Trump a few years ago, their top military leader. Hamas, Sinwar is dead. Mohammed Deif is probably dead. And yes, 45,000 people are lying all around them as well who are not able to fight. So congratulations to Israel. You've killed a whole lot of people, just an incredible amount of people to save your apartheid ethno-state. And I can imagine that makes a lot of people feel really good and warm inside. And to those people, I just have to say, you know, congratulations. And we'll see you on the front lines. I mean, that's all it is. It's just a war. They're not going to quit. And the people on the other side are not going to quit either. And this is what the problem with Zionism has always been since the very beginning, since its very inception as an idea in the 1880s or 90s, however you want to count it. Those people they will not give up, and they will not stop resisting, meaning the Palestinians and Arabs around them. They're not going to allow an exclusivist apartheid ethno-state in that region, which requires the permanent displacement of the native inhabitants. They're going to resist. They're going to resist violently. The original Zionists, every single one of them, Herzl, Jabotinsky, Ben-Gurion, all of them said this. They said, this is a colony, and the colonized always resist. Therefore, we need to meet them with powerful military force. That was Jabotinsky. That's the logic from the very beginning. And we have the rest of us who have either supported that project or been the victims of it, we have reaped the whirlwind of the logic of Zionism, and amazingly, because of the relative power, wealth, and influence of Jews around the world, it has become, for many, many reasons, largely that one, the central driver of much of the world's chaos, especially in that part of the world, but not just that part of the world, because the Israeli conflict, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, also resonates in Europe. It's connected to the Ukraine-Russia war in many ways. Russia has a naval base in Syria. As I said earlier, Russia came into that war in 2015 and drove out ISIS and al-Qaeda elements from Syria. They also bombed civilian residential areas and killed a bunch of civilians too, for sure, in doing that. But again, it's a civil war, which is just a reason I'm an anti-statist. So I'm not on neither side, but we must understand it's a law of physics. In a civil war, the leaders of the nation state will do damn near anything to protect their nation state. Anyway, so Russia now is deciding whether or not, I mean, they probably can't, but whether or not they can keep their naval base. And then they have an air base too that's just north of Tartus, also in Syria. They will have to evacuate And so Russia has now been driven out of the Eastern Mediterranean. That was their only base on the Mediterranean. I think it's the second base they have outside of Russia. The other one is in Djibouti in the Horn of Africa. So a big, huge win for the United States as well. They now drove the Russians out of the Mediterranean. Congratulations to them too. Yeah, those videos, I mean, imagine they make you feel good. You know, watching people getting shot in the streets and beheaded, and God knows what's happening to the women in Syria.
I'm not seeing that.
Not yet
on my feed, but what people are seeing, what normies are seeing, or at least what's being put on CNN, is crowds of people rejoicing that Assad is gone, and conversations with women that 50 years of brutality are over now, and that the prisons, the torture dungeon prisons, are being opened, apparently. I am seeing on my feed a bunch of videos from this happens every time something international happens, but videos from other conflicts spread, and it's not verified what exactly it is. And I always try to stay away from anything as it's happening in the heat of war, because atrocity propaganda is very easy to spread.
Yep.
Whenever this stuff happens.
Well, yeah, I mean, I meant that they're celebrating the overthrow of Assad as if that's just an unalloyed good, not just a good, but a great good. Yeah. I'm telling you, the guys on Pod Save America, who are arguably the most important liberals in the country, they probably are. I mean, because they really do kind of control most of the sort of mainstream liberal discourse. I mean, they were partying about this because they really hate us. Apparently, that's one of the things about being a liberal. You have to hate Putin and Assad more than, or just exactly as much as Hitler.
Well, yeah, no, it's this.
While knowing almost nothing about them, that's neither here nor there. It's
the specter of the dictator, I guess, right? It's, yeah.
What's the country in 1984? Is it East Asia, which is the enemy country?
Oh, yeah, Eurasia, East Asia. I mean,
East Asia. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the demon is essential for the empire, for any expansionist empire or any empire that wants to maintain its hold. You need a demon. And that's what they've been doing for about 100 years now, since the U.S. decided to become a global empire in earnest. Since World War I, they just weren't able to until World War II. But, and certainly since then, think about it, just one demon after another. I mean, gosh, if I didn't know better, I would think that every brown person on earth was just evil because they keep producing nothing but devils as their leaders that we have to kill, just one after another. Those brown people must be innately fucked up.
No. Here's the thing. Brown people in brown countries are dictators, okay? Brown people in white countries are democratically elected saviors. White people in white countries, also dictators. Trump, Putin, bad. But we need a...
But wait, are Russians white, though?
I think they are super whites. I think they're as white as you can get. I think they are.
What does Rogan say about them? They're a different kind of white?
Yeah. But, yeah. In I don't know, in modern American racial politics, they are.
Oh, they're definitely white. Oh, yeah, totally white. Yeah.
They have a complexity of thought that is not available to other Western thinkers. So
wow. Yeah. It's like the hot, crazy Matrix, but like the white dictator Matrix or something. I don't know. There's something you can just. Anyway, it's interesting. The liberal mind is something it's always important to keep tabs on it, to know where it's going. But that's where the liberal mind is right now. It's part of the repertoire.
Yeah.
You got to, when you hear the words Putin or Assad, you go like, like your latte was sour, like they put bad milk in your latte, that face.
Well,
and you just really hate them so much.
This is like, Dugan talks about this a lot. Do
you see the Dugan? Do you see that Dugan and Mearsheimer?
Oh no, it's 3 hours. I need to make.
I
time
know,
for that. Yeah,
but everyone should go watch that and then watch my interview with Dugan. More importantly, no, but it's gonna be. I haven't watched it, but I've heard it's an epic confrontation. And then Scott Horton has been also like dominating Piers Morgan's show.
Yeah,
like destroying.
He's been feeding him neocons, and he's just.
He destroyed. First, he's destroyed Neil Ferguson. That was delicious at the Hoover Institution. And then he just went off on Wesley Clark. Poor little Wesley Clark, the former commander of NATO, gets just annihilated by little Scott Horton. Yeah. Of course, Scott starts cursing at them and calling them names and stuff, but he just wipes them out. And it's just amazing. Like actual anti-imperialism is being aired on major channels now. And major anti-imperialists are getting to confront head on the heads of the empire. I mean, it's wild. We've never seen this before. It's the golden age of anti-imperialism, and I'm here for it.
If there's a way to invest in Dr. Pepper, I would advise people to do that.
Yes, exactly. Scott's going to be. He's going to be doing a product placement on his show now. I don't think so.
But yeah, Dugan talks about like democracy isn't popular, or the problem is
not.
Yeah.
Who the fuck wants to be in a democracy?
Well, it's exhausting. Not even that, but just like in a democracy itself, the people who are going to be elected are people who represent those people. And typically those are going to be populists and nationalists who represent the majority of the people there. But that runs counter to the Western idea of human rights and the Western idea of minority rights. And so you have to elevate unpopular minority representatives to create like a global hegemon that protects this abstract idea of human rights. But they do that through undemocratic means because they can't win elections, because the people who win elections are populist nationalists. And this is like the crisis that democracy thrusts itself into, is that it can't sustain that order that it's proposing.
So everyone knows, right, that democracy is a secular variant of Christianity, right? We all know this, don't we? But Christianity, of course, egalitarian.
I would say Protestantism, but yeah.
Yeah, thank you. No, totally right. Correct. Exactly. Because the church understands meaning the Catholic Church understands the importance of a hierarchy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. No, you're right. Protestantism since the Reformation has been one and the same as democracy in a sense. Although, I mean, of course, obviously Protestantism doesn't come out of nowhere within Christianity, right? I do think there's obviously an major egalitarian component to the teachings of Jesus. No?
There's an egalitarian component to it, but I think Jesus is beyond politics.
Yeah, I know. There's a little faction of you within the academy who keep telling me this. But no, I don't
under
think
Caesar
so.
that which belongs to Caesar, and render under God that which belongs to God.
No, I understand that, but he has his ideas have political implications, don't they?
I mean, if you're a heretic, yeah.
No, yes, they do. Just say yes. Okay. Enough of this talking back. Okay, just say yes. Of course they do. I mean, I was raised around some, not all, but some Christian socialists. And they knew exactly the deal. And when I first read the Bible in college, and I read that, I said, Jesus is my homie, because I was a socialist at the time.
Oh,
no, anyway.
On those lines, this is just another problem I want to propose to the populist right. The people who keep saying that America is and should be an Anglo-Protestant country, which, I don't necessarily disagree with. But if the United States is to be an Anglo-Protestant country, then you should probably take your cues from the Episcopal Church of Boston. And if you go there, you're probably going to find that they are as woke and as socialist and as imperialist as you can get. It's like,
oh yeah,
beyond the New York Times editorial.
They probably have a lesbian pastor.
Probably a black.
I mean, really, the Episcopalians have been like pro-LGBT for decades now.
But that's as American as it gets, though. Like, that's the lineage, right? If you are this American identitarian person, it should be the Anglo-Protestants, right? And that's institutionally, that's it.
The left is it's all Christians.
Yeah,
Some of them just don't know it, but they're all Christians. The moral framework is all Christian. The moral values are all Christian. The personal values are Christian. The asceticism, Christian. Anyway, Dugin's thesis, and Alexander and I, we've gone back and forth on it. Yeah, I mean, he's right. I mean, I love his thinking on this stuff, and he's in some ways the closest to me on this kind of issue, I would say. I think Dugin, although, yes, it's true, he has said some things about the Russian Empire that make me pause. But aside from that, I mean, I do think he is the great anti-imperialist philosopher of our time. And I wish everyone would read him and maybe challenge him on his thoughts about Russia. But boy, he is amazing when it comes to, he's pure when it comes to, I'd say, non-Russian empires. So I think he's getting at this thing, which he and I talked about in my interview with him, universalism versus particularism, and the universalism of the left, which originates with Rousseau and the social contract, has always been, and this is the funny thing, because they always pretend to be representing the masses, right? Because think about this. If you're a pro-democracy person, then you have to you can't say, well, no one wants this. No one wants the vote, but I think they should have it. And I think democracy is wonderful, right? So they've always said, since democracy became a real political movement in the 19th century, late 18th, 19th century, they've always said, we represent the people, right? The people want democracy, right? Listen to a State Department official anytime over the last 100 years, and they will say, the people in Vietnam want democracy. The people in Iraq want democracy. The people in Libya want democracy. The people in Palestine want democracy. And we're going to go to war in their country to make sure they have democracy. And then it turns out, and this is what Dugin is saying, then it turns out, when we look at all this history, these conflicts, these wars, these imperialist invasions, and their aftermath, we find out that the only people who want democracy are the people who went to college in the United States. Does anyone else want democracy? That's what American colleges teach us. And that's what they've been doing since about World War I, by the way. If you look at the civics education programs in colleges since 1917, if you look at the great books programs in colleges since 1917, they say explicitly, we are teaching people how to be citizens. And then they say, we are also teaching them how to be citizens of the world. They started saying that after World War II, when colleges and universities in the United States started to have international relations departments. This was a new thing. Other countries didn't have them. We had large, extensive international relations departments in all of our universities, staffed by famous people and scholars, and oh my God. And then history departments and political science departments had international relations experts in them all of a sudden. We had all this whole army of experts and institutions and think tanks and universities devoted to this. Then there were entire schools of international relations, which we still have. Harvard, Tufts, Yale, Columbia have all their own specific international, because we became a global empire. A global empire that needed to be managed and staffed and thought about. And so we had to train all these people to run the work, to run all these 800 military outposts, to manage all these diplomatic relations with all these countries that we want to have some kind of relationship with, usually by force. That's not even the military, to oversee the bases and the soldiers and the wars and the battles and the conflict and all that stuff. Well, who is it that goes to those universities with international relations departments? It's the elite, college-educated sons and daughters of privilege in the United States. They care about democracy. Also because their power is not challenged. Not yet. Well, I guess it has been challenged for the first time, but until it was challenged by MAGA, they love democracy. That class, that liberal intellectual class, elite intellectual class, they loved them some democracy until people started voting against them.
Well, yeah. They like it in theory, not in practice.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
They loved freedom of speech until MAGA came along. They're like, nope, we can't have freedom of speech anymore. That's when liberals changed their mind, was 2016. You could see it. It's an incredible thing. They were awesome on free speech. I loved liberals on free speech. And then 2016 happens. They're like, you know what? We were just kidding. We need to monitor everything and regulate everything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But I brought that up. I know briefly the Romanian elections that just got canceled. I think it's important to bring that up because there's some parallels to like everything that just happened there, everything that's been going on. So, I mean, I don't know. I haven't been following this too closely, but it just happened. There's a far right candidate, Galan Heights, and for some reason he's super popular this time around. They're blaming it on Russian interference
and disinformation.
Disinformation spread on
which
platform? Guess which platform the disinformation is being spread
on? Might it have something to do with Russia?
Russia, but TikTok.
TikTok. China, the other one.
China,
right.
Which is still on course to be banned in the United States in 40 days, which nobody's talking about.
Oh, right.
So, and much like Trump, he had some anti-immigrant rhetoric. He's making gains with low propensity young voters, low propensity rural voters, and had a big surge. But because there's this allegation of Russian interference, the election results that had him winning by 3% were annulled. And now all the opposition parties to him have united their support behind one candidate. And it looks like the pro-Western faction is going to remain in power in Romania.
Okay. So here's the thing about all these color. This is the latest color revolution.
Oh yeah, there was another color revolution, massive protests in the streets about how much everybody in Romania just loves the EU. Like everywhere apparently in every major city, if the EU ever gets threatened, there's going to be fireworks and dancing in the streets if anybody threatens to leave the EU.
Ask a Romanian about the EU and they'll just start masturbating. They just love it. So, there are probably, maybe 1 to 5% of Romanians love the EU. That's my guess, for sure, and the rest don't even think about it. So here's the thing about these color revolutions, which have been in basically every Eastern European country for the last, 20 years or something. They all have a color or a flower or a tree associated with them. Lebanon was cedar. Ukraine was orange. Georgia was rose, maybe. What is so frustrating for me, and it's the information that I would give the most to get, if anybody can get to the bottom of this, I will pay them money and I will praise them for the rest of my life. We need this. Yeah, we don't know how much money the United States is spending in Romania. I'd like to know that. I'd like to see that budget. Why is that a black budget? Why is that opaque? Why can't we see that? Why can't we? I want to know exactly how much you're spending in Romania. Which NGOs, which media outlets is the United States funding, supporting, helping, training, giving advice to? Who are we talking to in Romania? Meaning government officials or people paid by the government. What is the National Endowment for Democracy doing in Romania with our tax money to foment this color revolution?
If the United States is promoting a candidate in Europe or Romania or anywhere, that's pro-democracy because they are in line with the liberal consensus in the world. They are in favor of Western conceptions of human rights. If a candidate has any sympathies towards any country outside of that, like Russia, or if Russia is propping up any candidate anywhere, interfering at all, buying Facebook ads, that's anti-democracy.
Do you not see how it's Christian? Do you see how it's Christian?
How?
Because it's God's work. If it's God's work, God's objective, then by all means necessary.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how they think. I'm not saying that's the correct interpretation of the Bible, But it is a major interpretation of the Bible going back to the Crusades, is what I'm saying. It is the new Crusades, is it not? Of course it is, Michael.
I don't know.
What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?
This
Think
might be
for a second.
This might be the integration of Christianity and Nietzscheism that everybody has been.
God, I hope not. No,
what actually it? Because
that's impossible.
It's the ends justify the means. That's what it is. To me, it's very cynical. It's the ends justify the means. It's a cynical grasp for power, and it's I
see.
Yeah.
So you're saying there's a will to power in it. That's what makes it Nietzschean?
To me, yeah.
Yeah, no. That okay. But
and the language used to justify it is moral language that has its roots in Christianity, but mostly the Protestant Reformation ideas about individualism.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And
for sure. Yeah. So if you want to get down with the will to power, then support the US, then the regime change war in Syria is great. You know, Israel's doing awesome in the Middle East. Power to them. Death to our enemies. Sure. I mean, I get it.
Yeah. I want
being the dominant superpower does have a kind of phallic, erotic appeal to it. I will say that. Yeah.
I stole this take from Logo Daedalus on Twitter, famous poster.
Oh no, he's dangerous.
Podcaster. Okay. I mean, I think he's interesting and right about a lot of things. Not always right, but he says this: Nietzscheanism is the mass ideology of the West. We have left Nietzscheans and right Nietzscheans, the worldview inculcated by our culture is anarchism, anti-authoritarianism, a complete disrespect for notion of right in favor of might. Down here, he says, Hillary Clinton says we saw, he died, and cackles. And then in reference to the United Healthcare shooter, he says, you say deny, defend, oppose, and giggle. That basically what Logo is proposing is that complete cynical will to power and ironic detachment is the dominating philosophical energy of the West right now. And you can see it in how our leaders behave, and you can see it in the attitudes of detachment and cynicism amongst the citizens on the ground.
So you're saying that, or is he saying that Hillary Clinton's attitude is the same as the attitude of the alt-right in that regard?
Yes.
Cynical.
Cynical, yes.
And
cynical will to power.
Cynical will to power, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that raises a very important and interesting question about, and which I've talked with Daniel Bessner about on the Unregistered podcast maybe 6 months ago. Well worth looking at that. Dan's thesis, which I think he's written about, and he kind of sustains this in a lot of his work, is the American empire is no longer ideological. Mm-hmm. Meaning the leaders of it.
Quite a bit.
And you and I have talked about the leaders of it, meaning the heads of state, the presidents and the senators and the major Congress people and the think tanks that run the American empire. The people at the head of the State Department for the last 20 to 30, I suppose, years, since 9/11, are no longer ideologically driven in the way that I've been saying, that they're no longer evangelical, that they're no longer driven by this idea that they are obligated by God to uplift the world. It's an open question. Let's think about it. Tony Blinken, Jake Sullivan.
Well,
I mean, Samantha Power is still around. Samantha Power is currently the head of USAID. She runs the NED. She runs the National Endowment for Democracy. She runs these Orange Revolutions. She runs the Color Revolution projects. She's there. Miss Humanitarian Intervention.
What's more cynical and destructive than that, though?
No, I know, but I'm saying, but her motivation is ideological. That's the question for me. Are they coming at it from just a desire to run the world? Like, I just want to be the top and I want America to be the top? Or is it, gosh, those Iraqi people would be so much better off if they got the vote. Mm-hmm. we need to make sure they have that. Or those poor girls in Afghanistan, we need to make sure that they can go to school.
Well, look at how they've been talking ever since Harris lost. At least the smart Democrats, they're like, okay, we have to run an attractive white guy this next time around. They're like, everything that they're willing to abandon these decades of work in identity politics, their whole dream to get a Gavin Newsom who will seize power for them. They want like somebody who will lie to the American public and cynically grab power and pretend to be something he's not in order for the Democrats to get power again. And I think if the Democratic Party is going to win, it's going to be somebody like Gavin Newsom. And
wait a minute. Wait, are you saying that Gavin Newsom doesn't care about me?
Yeah. I mean,
I'm his constituent, man.
Yeah.
Like I live in his state. What do you mean he doesn't care about me?
I think he could, yeah.
he does. Oh, he's so good looking though.
Yeah,
he must care about me. Also, Gavin Newsom is a straight guy like me who cares about the gays a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He likes the gays, just like me. Yeah. I think we were born in the same year, and we grew up in the Bay Area at the same time. Other than that, yeah, no, he doesn't give a shit about me. And it's mutual. But so he will be the next president. You know that, right?
Potentially. It depends. I mean,
Garen. No, that's a.
He has. I think
that's
he
in
has
the books.
He has a horrible record in California, and if a Republican can highlight that,
if I have anything to do with it, he'll never see the light of day in that race.
But he's just, again, he's the first governor of California to where the population goes down because people are leaving the state. I think in the most beautiful land in the world, right? The most beautiful mineral-rich land of opportunity, and people are fleeing it because of the job he did. I think I don't think that person can win if the Republicans do their job right.
This is such a beautiful place. Naturally, it is.
Yeah.
And it sure was when I was growing up, and it sure isn't now. I mean, it's what it is. It's the most beautiful place on earth with a bunch of junk hanging off of it. That's what it is. When you're in California, especially the cities, that's what it is. You just look around, you're just like, oh yeah, this is a gorgeous. It's like a Christmas tree with shitty ornaments all over it. And the shitty ornaments are Democrat Party regulations and laws.
Yeah.
1,000%.
Literal shit in the streets.
And which produce, yes, those are connected. Yes.
Yeah.
Just all you got to do is anybody go look at an overhead view of San Francisco, the city of San Francisco, and look at the whole city, like an overhead view, like a drone view. And you can see there's skyscrapers in downtown, but then the entire western part of the city, which is about 2/3 of the city, the entire western part, from the hills all the way to the ocean, there's no structure over about 3 stories, because essentially San Francisco doesn't allow the construction of multi-story apartment buildings, housing complexes, because the local residents don't want it. And so that is why it is so impossibly expensive to live in San Francisco, because the supply of housing is artificially, ridiculously low, which causes all of the other social ills in San Francisco. And so if you just stop the progressives from letting this happen, these NIMBY progressives from let the market go, build some housing, then we can all live in San Francisco again, like we used to be able to, not even that long ago. In the 1990s, all my friends who were just out of college, we were all broke. All my friends lived in either San Francisco, Seattle, or Manhattan. And we were poor. I mean, we were like my friends were like anarchist punk rockers and lived in the East Village in New York City. Not happening now. Now you got to live like 30 miles from any metropole, any place that's cool, which also has a massive destructive influence on the culture. I think there's no more artistic or cultural center anymore in America. There's no place to go physically where you will find people who are doing cutting edge work, making cutting edge art, online. I get it. That's where it's all at. But I'd like to do this in person too sometimes, and that's just impossible. Anyway, let's talk about the hollowing out of the American middle class, and our avenger, Luigi.
Okay. Luigi? Okay.
He's avenging this. This is what he's doing. He's avenging that very phenomenon, the destruction of the American middle class. All of us good, wholesome, stable, socially responsible middle class Americans are now it's impossible to live anywhere we want to live, and to have health care that we think we deserve. And Luigi is our hero, is he not?
I thought this was so unambiguously obvious last week that I didn't say it explicitly, but This was obviously a cold-blooded murder that nothing good will come from.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but that's but then we can't talk about it if you just say that.
Yeah.
Then we can't make a more important political point about it, about the healthcare system.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, is it going to lead to the reform of the health insurance industry in America? No, I don't think so.
I think Logo Daedalus has been posting about this as well and has been getting it absolutely correct. That if anything, this reinforces the system, and that Marx and Engels themselves warned that political assassinations only delegitimize your cause.
Yep.
And yeah.
Who were they responding to? Who were Marx and Engels talking about then? Back in the 19th century, they were criticizing one particular faction.
It was
anarchists.
Yeah.
Anarchists who, in the late 19th century, that was their thing. It's not a new thing among anarchists. It's not just now that they started liking assassinating people. It goes all the way back, and there were attempts on American presidents. There were attempts on European dignitaries and authorities and
Italian
capitalists, Italians. I mean,
we're back.
But even here,
17th. That we're back in. It's
Yeah. No, I mean, they were dangerous people, and I have, even though I am anarchistic and I sometimes occasionally call myself an anarchist, I have nothing to do with those people.
Yeah.
They're really just communists. If you look at their ideology, if you look at like Emma Goldman, if you dig down deep into it, it's fundamentally not different than communism. It's an authoritarian collectivism at the heart of it. They're not, so to me, they're not really anarchists, actually. And all the anarchists I hung out with as in college and later in grad school, most of my friends were anarchists. That's what they were. I just saw them as sort of like, they wanted an authoritarian microstate instead of an authoritarian, big national state. They just wanted it to be localized, decentralized. But the authoritarianism was severe. I mean, even in the organizations, even in the way they talked, even in their own personalities and their whole mode of being, it's authoritarian from bottom to top. It was constant moralizing about who's fucked up, that's fucked up, or this thing is bad or immoral or whatever. Almost no analysis, just a black and white, again, sort of Christian morality kind of translated through this secular left-wing politics, but it's just Christian feelings being played out in left-wing politics. That's all it is. It's really amazing. They don't even know it. They're just being little monks and nuns. And the asceticism, the Puritanism, the sexual asceticism and Puritanism on the left, oh my God. Feminism in particular. You're trying to tell me you're not Christians? Really? Okay. I mean, just look around, guys. That's all you are. You're just continuing that tradition that began with the Crusades. And it's not pretty. But Luigi, so I mean, like, wait, so okay, right. So it's just stupid, basically apolitical, and will have nothing but negative political consequences, just like the assassinations of all the world leaders happened at the turn of the 20th century by anarchists led to what? What did we get from that? Did we get world revolution? No, we got World Wars I and II. And the Red Scare and the deportation of all the anarchists in 1919. They all got thrown out of the United States and sent back to Europe.
Yeah. And Italians weren't allowed in at all because
boom. And then
through. Yeah.
Awesome point. And then 1924, they were like, you know what? no more Italians and Jews because they're all commies and anarchists. And that's exactly what happened. We had no more Italians or Jews allowed into this country for 40 years because they were mostly anarchists and communists. That's barely an exaggeration. Okay, good point. So fuck Luigi. But I mean, it is good at least to have the conversation about the health insurance industry, is it not?
If anybody is responsible for, we mentioned this last week, but if anybody is responsible for the rising cost of healthcare, it is Barack Hussein Obama.
Ooh.
And healthcare CEO, Logo Data has pointed this out, is just an employee like anybody else.
Yeah.
He is serving the interests of his shareholders. If he doesn't behave a certain way, he's going to be fired. It is a completely replaceable role that anybody in his position would do the same thing. Just like any retail worker is going to enforce mask policies during COVID. It's just that's how this works.
Blame the policy, not the player.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, Obama set the policy. What was dude's name again?
Hussein.
No, got killed.
Oh.
It's just the reason I love this show is the racism. I just do. I mean, anyway, no.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is it racist to call somebody by their legal name?
By their Muslim name?
By their actual name that's on the certificate?
By their Arab ass name? Their Mexican ass name? What?
Brian Thompson.
That black dude? Dude, you're always my N-word. What's his name? Mark something? Brian Thompson. I knew it was some white boy name. See how I dehumanized him right there?
Yeah,
It's terrible. I used to actually do that back in even when I was a professor, for a while there. I was because it was academia. They probably still do this, but in the 90s, 2000s, it was totally cool to to denigrate white people in that way.
Yeah.
To basically dehumanize them. I mean, and I used to say stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I am sorry. And it's right. The right is right about that. There's a crazy self-loathing or something on the left that is just so gross and sick.
Yeah.
Except when I say it, then it's usually right because some white people are fucked up. But anyway, so we're talking about morality and white men today, right? Because we got Daniel Penny also on the docket here.
Yeah.
And so this is what people have been having fun with online is, who's worse? Who's the bad guy and who's the good guy? Is Daniel Penny? Because the left says Daniel Penny is what's it called? He lynched Jordan Neely.
Yeah.
He's a murderer. And they're saying that Luigi is their great hero because he killed the CEO, the corporate CEO. Now the right is saying just the opposite. And people on the right, I guess everybody's sort of saying, well, this is the litmus test. What you think about these two guys, who you think is the good guy and who you think is the bad guy determines what your politics are. My position on Luigi is kind of what it's always been. And I agree with you. I mean, it's just kind of, it's not going to amount to anything. The only thing positive, as I said, is it's caused a conversation about this very important industry that I particularly hate. But no, it's not just a really bad thing for his kids and his wife and him, but it does nothing for us. Does nothing for us at all. Daniel Penny, and I said this on the show, I've said it on Twitter. What am I missing here? If you've ever done jujitsu at all, if you've even taken one single jujitsu class, you know that he did not need to kill that guy. That if you're held in a choke like that, 1 minute is a very long time. 60 seconds when you're losing oxygen is if you will black out. You'll be black in 60 seconds. It's happened to me. And that is when everybody who's ever taken a single, little girls, little 7-year-old girls who take jujitsu classes are taught this. Everybody knows this. You have to release as soon as they lose consciousness. Or even before then, as you are feeling them lose consciousness, you must release, because if you don't, you will kill them. We've known this. Joe Rogan has said for years on his show over and over again, I can kill anybody I get my hands on. It's true. It's true. It's a lethal martial art. I can punch or kick someone really hard and maybe kill them. But if I get a rear naked choke in someone deep, they're dead if I want them to be. Like, it's that simple. If you get it, if you have them under control and it's in deep, that you can kill them without even barely any effort. That's how powerful that martial art is. And he knew this, and he held him in that choke for 6 minutes.
I think the Gracies.
Why is this even controversial? I don't get it. If it had been for a minute or two, we could have a conversation about, okay, maybe you don't know when exactly to release the choke, but like 6 minutes, he's killing him. And he knows that. He was trained. He was a trained jiu-jitsu artist. He knew this. And so I'm sorry, it's some form of manslaughter. It's not premeditated, obviously, but I thought the manslaughter charge was right.
His training was in the Marines. I'm not sure. Yeah.
No, they teach jiu-jitsu a lot in the Marines. The Marines love jiu-jitsu. Yeah.
Now, it was discovered that Neely had a pulse when medics and police first arrived, that he was probably brain dead at that moment, but he still had a pulse. So that might have been the mistake that Penny had, thinking that he had a pulse, so that means that he's still alive. When
you can immediately feel someone going out when you're choking. You can immediately feel it. It's not even ambiguous at all. Otherwise, think about it. Every UFC fighter would be dead by now.
Well, you have a referee.
They'd all be dead because
you have a referee in
training. They'd be dead in training 1,000 times over. I've been choked so many times where I thought, oh my God, if he keeps it in for another 20, even at the Williams Center, I was playing around with that guy in the courtyard, right? And I was like, if he had held that choke for another, God knows, 20 seconds, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make this.
There's a difference between training in a safe gym and encountering a chaotic person in a real life scenario. And I think real life scenarios are too chaotic to establish that precedent.
He had a toggle switch on that. I'm telling you, he had him under complete control. He had full body control. And he had the choke in all the way. It's a toggle switch at that point. It's either life or death. Honestly, when you're in jiu-jitsu, that's what it is. Either guys lives or dies. And it's that simple. It's just a little bit of pressure will kill somebody. And he knew that. And I'm sorry, you're wrong. Well, what if he was black? What if Daniel Penny was black?
Then
and Jordan Neely was white.
We would not know their names.
Oh God, this is going to be the last racist show on YouTube. I'm pretty sure they're going to kick all the other ones off before us. But I mean, I'm not also sad about this because I don't really want Daniel Penny or most people to go to prison, but I do think he did a very bad thing. And it was at least a manslaughter.
The Gracies, I believe, the two younger Gracies that have a gym that often comment on martial arts scenarios, they did release a video, I think, when this first came out, saying that this looked bad, that this did not represent the art form of martial arts very well.
Thank you. I didn't know that. Thank you. Yeah, the Gracies, guys. The Gracies. They invented the sport.
My opinion is the real world is it's not a sport, it's a real world scenario. Those are way more chaotic and complicated, and there's more factors you got to think about.
Neely was semi-conscious in full body control, right? He wasn't even struggling after a minute. And they were surrounded by a dozen people who, no one was in danger from Neely after a minute. After a minute is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but there were other people trying to restrain Neely during those 6 minutes as well. After the first, I'm talking about. So for me, the first minute is totally legitimate, totally justified, absolutely. First 60 seconds for sure, but another 5 after that, were they helping him after? Because Neely was not moving, was he? After that, after a minute, he was restrained. Yeah, but I think it's too chaotic to determine, and I think the jury had more information on this case than we do, and maybe
they did acquit. It's a Manhattan. It is a Manhattan jury.
It's a Manhattan
and they
jury.
did acquit.
They did, yeah. There are other factors like again, there were 2 black witnesses who spoke very highly of Neely. One was the woman that spoke highly of Penny. One was the woman that Neely was threatening, and I believe the man who was restraining Neely with Penny also spoke well of Penny in that scenario. But it's you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know when people are going to come to help you, and
or is it just that you can't get enough of white men killing black men? Like just the more you see, the better it is. Just fucking, just slurp it up, man.
Did you see?
It's always the other way around, right, brother?
Yeah,
it's always us getting victimized. Hello, in fistfights, who's always the aggressor and the victim? I'm the victim. Trust me. So finally, we get ours.
Well,
no, that's what's dude. That's what's going on here. Come on, now. Admit it. Admit it.
Look, Daniel Penny was Irish, so any sort of ethnic
surprise.
Yeah. I don't have any ethnic warm-hearted feelings towards Daniel Penny in this regard, and I think with Luigi being Italian and me having nothing nice to say about him shows my complete lack of ethnic bias at all in this.
Right.
Yeah.
No ethnic confirmation bias here. This is purely objective.
Gotcha. Objective. Yeah.
Fed by incredible race hate, but otherwise it's purely objective.
The 2 other important things I think about the Penny case are BLM's complete impotence in
they're gone.
They're
gone. They had a little bit of a protest outside the courthouse. Maybe it sounded like maybe 100 people, maybe at most. Right. They're done.
Yeah.
It's a new era, man. The election really did. It really did break the back of a lot of the cultural constructs that were dominant before, and I think that's one of them. I think, man, this is, I've been complaining about the Trump administration. I will continue to, because on foreign policy, he is the devil. And I don't trust Kennedy, but I think that on cultural matters, I think it is certainly a good thing. And I do think wokeness is decimated. I don't know if it's dead, but I do think it's been driven into just little tiny hardcore precincts like where I live, and maybe like college towns and some big cities, but not even big cities.
Well,
I would say only parts of big cities.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Liberals are so isolated. That's the thing, is
they're becoming isolated.
Yeah.
Amazing. What a turn of events, right? They seem to control the way everyone thought, and what everything was on our screens was controlled by liberals like 5 years ago.
Thin veneer, though.
Turns out.
Yeah.
No, it's amazing. That is revolutionary in a sense. There really is kind of a big shift in American culture, but it's probably just a reversion to the norm.
Yes.
The pre-woke, pre-Trump norm of the 2000s, I suppose. So it's not revolutionary in that sense, but it is a reaction. And in this case, on this, I'm with it, because I hate that stuff. I hate pretty much all the directions of American culture since the 2010s. There's almost nothing that has emerged in the last 20 years, politically or culturally, aesthetically, artistically, that I like. The movies have gone downhill. Restaurants are terrible now. Politicians are all absolute morons. And of course, TDS, wokeness, hip hop is terrible now. What is not, neoliberal restaurants, neoliberal houses, neoliberal hotels. The infrastructure, the streets are buckling and potholed, and the bridges are falling down. Literally, I can't drive my car 5 miles. This is in California without like giant divots in the road. What has happened in the last 20 years that's been good in American culture? I mean, I can't think of anything. I'm sorry to say you grew up in that.
I don't have time to litigate that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next time.
One last thing I did want to say about the Syria thing. I think Russia pulling out of Syria, not being at Assad's defense in his final moments in Syria might be leverage as Ukrainian peace talks start happening, where Putin can go to NATO and say, okay, I let you have Syria. Now, can you let me control my own border with Ukraine? I think that might be part of the
I don't think so.
here. No?
No. I mean, I could be wrong, but I just say that most of the smart analysts on this, and even the people who are anti-Putin are saying this now, which is that nothing matters except the fact that Russia controls that territory, that Ukraine's lost the war, and they can't take it back. And so that, there's almost certainly going to be a deal in which Russia's going to take the 20% of Ukraine in the east and the south in exchange for something else. But like Putin holds all the cards. Yeah. So he doesn't need this, is my point.
He doesn't need leverage in this.
He doesn't need it. Not in Ukraine. I mean, so how it affects Russia long term, that's curious and interesting. Like I said, they did lose their port in the Mediterranean, but what exactly? Well, what that was for, actually, it was used for was Syria, but then also the Wagner force would go through Tartus to get to Africa to help in the fights, the civil wars in northern Africa. But there are many people in Russia, like major political figures in Russia, including Dugin, by the way, who don't want Russia going to Russia. I mean, don't want Russia going to Africa. Yeah. So I wonder what Dugin thinks about Tartus, the Tartus military base. I doubt he's excited about it. Maybe he is, but I don't see why he would be. So this is not, maybe for a Russian nationalist like Dugin or most Russians, might even be a good thing. Russia does have an empire. Of course it does. It does have territory, not much, but has a little bit of territory outside of Russia. That's an empire. Russian nationalists don't want that. They want just, good old fashioned Russia, period. So I think it's not bad necessarily to trim the sails of the Russian empire. It's just that it's happening at the expense of the American empire. Or, I mean, it's happening to the benefit of the American empire, and that's not so great. So anyway, all right, man, we good?
Yeah. Is there going to be an after show tonight?
After show. Hit it up. Become a patron. There you go. Go to patreon.com/unregistered. Become a member at any level, $5 even a month. That's all you got to do. It's a Zoom meeting. We hang out. It's a highlight of my week right after Unreported every Wednesday, starting right about just now in about a minute. It's a really fun meeting just to hang out, playtime. And then tomorrow, as I said earlier in this show, we're going to do Unregistered live stream in which I will take on the Kennedy mythology and introduce you to some of the work that we're doing at Unregistered Academy. And if you would like to become a member of the Academy, and we have a lot of new members now, by the way, and we're going to be rolling out a lot of new features at the Academy in the next couple of months. Join us. Go to unregisteredacademy.com. There's monthly memberships. There's annual memberships. And and you can learn all about the Kennedys and all the other things that we offer there. So this has been awesome, Michael. You are the man as always. And I will see some of us tomorrow night and everybody else next week.
And in a couple seconds now, in a minute or so on the after show in the future.
Exactly. All right. All right, man. Peace.